Welcome to YLC, the Young Leaders Committee that promotes and grows youth leadership that ensures the future leaders lead from today by educating and inspiring them to soar higher and higher.
Welcome to YLC, the Young Leaders Committee, the platform that educates, enlightens, inspires, and walks young people into leadership from their youth. Young people, your leadership era has started. Waiting for tomorrow may not be a good idea. This is the first session of episode 1/19, and the theme of this episode is perception to performance. Perception to performance. And our focus in this particular session is looking at the concept. We titled it The Philosophy of Perception. We will look at the concepts, as I said, so that we can all be on the same page throughout this episode of 5 sessions. This episode has 5 sessions. Perception is vital in leadership. This is because it determines the extent of success, the height that could be attained by leaders as well. To be a leader in a very practical sense, especially if you desire to set the tone in your organization, you must perceive potential prospects, possibilities, and proficient people who can bring in the result you expect. You should also be able to cause others to see and be willing to go the new way with you. That is leadership responsibility. Perception is a crucial human factor that affects many things, including success at work. Unwittingly, many human beings have their varied perceptions about people, about things, and even about places. However, there can be a great difference between your perception in life and your perception at work, but they have a great relationship and they affect one another. In organizational settings, perception is the process by which people interpret and make sense of their environment. The environment here includes the people, events, and situations they encounter in the workplace. Perception, taken as a cognitive process, involves individuals choosing the stimuli to focus on, arranging the stimuli they have selected among many, and then giving meaning to the stimuli. We want to present 2 basic levels or types of perception. First, leaders perceive what is yet to be. They perceive what still resides at the non-concrete, non-material domain, which requires imagination to pick and birth so as to bring them to reality. The second is how they view things in hand, opinions on the table, systems at work, and a number of others. While the first is influenced or largely determined by foresight and creativity, the second is influenced by a person's needs, desires, values, education, exposure, and disposition, among others. This means that what one person perceives can be very different from what another person perceives, and both can be different from the actual and the real. This is because perception is person dependent, and so it is highly subjective. It could then be identified or picked up as a major cause of conflicts or disagreements in organizations. Let's refer to the first type of perception as directional perception. And then we shall refer to the second one as operational perception. Directional perception is key because it determines where the organization heads. When it has charted the course of action or activities, then operational perception takes over to analyze, supervise, and implement the agreed upon decisions as well as the processes. Operational perception is diverse. As we can see in the assertion that a particular blogger made, he said, perception can affect how people act in certain situations. It can affect their performance at tasks and even their creativity. He gave an example. A manager's perception of an employee's personality traits can help them determine the employee's work ethic and strength. End of quote. It has to do with materials in use. We are talking about operational perception. It has to do with materials in use. It has to do with decision making, communication, operations, team members and team collaboration, and many others. Going further, this particular blogger said that perception attributes one's characteristics to someone else. Let's say the perceiver and the person being looked on. Perception of the perceiver, possibly the superior officer, could be in relation to attributing one's own characteristics to this other fellow. And a number of psychological and sociological implications can be discussed. But we don't have the time here. We can take that in a webinar. Going further, this blogger says, perception perceives things based on the perceiver's needs, motives, and interests. And again, that perception judges others based on incomplete information most times. And finally, that perception interprets the behavior of others based on the perceiver's mental set. We know, however, that perceptions could be right or wrong. Perception could be accurate or faulty, can be encouraging or discouraging. It can impact either positively or negatively. This is a strong reason to study perception. And this is a good reason why we are bringing up this topic. As I said earlier, we can discuss more on this in a formal webinar and look at the implications. And we are urging all leaders to take heed to their perceptions. In the same vein, we advocate that leaders enhance their directional perception so that their organizations will go where they have cut out for themselves and achieve the goals they have set for themselves. This is based on the fact that perception can be sharpened and developed. Perception can be sharpened and developed. And that's why we are making this clarion call to leaders to work on their perceptions. It can cause a lot of problems and even setbacks. Generally, perception is a credible means for acquiring organizational vision, mission, and core values. At the formation of organizations, directional perception is usually needed to birth the vision of the organization. And as we said earlier, thereafter, directional perception will be needed to break down the corporate goals into periodic goals or departmental targets, which are required to get the organization to achieve its primary goal. Leaders must therefore learn to develop their perceptions. Thank you very much for watching. Young Leaders Committee is a mentoring group for the growth and stability of young leaders and prospective leaders. It promises potentials and opportunities for encountering all classes of young people and turning them around for excellence. Registration has commenced. The earlier you get registered, the brighter your chances. You can use the link on the screen or visit our website www.gedamconsult.com to register. It's free. Thanks. See you at the next session.